Welcome to the E Show, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Founded in 2013, the EHL is your next step on the path to college. Over the past decade, the EHL has established itself as the college placement leader on the East Coast. And now, here's your host, the commissioner of the Eastern Hockey League, Neil Ravin.
Thanks, Jim. With that, let's bring in Jeff, Jake, and Anthony. Guys, we took an extra day here before we recorded the post-Frozen Finals episode to get some rest. How are we all feeling?
Woo! Well, I had a little bit of a sickness after the Frozen Finals, so I'm feeling a little better now. How about you guys?
Physically good, emotionally just a little sad it's all over, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Anthony?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing.
Boom.
Can we all, I think, get on the same page and agree, though, finishing the Frozen Finals on a Saturday as opposed to Sunday, I kind of like it.
Loved it.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that a new change going into the owners' meetings for next year? Yeah.
I may
Tuesday
do it.
through Saturday instead?
Yeah. I mean, it made it kind of like a work day type Frozen Finals, right? Because we went Tuesday through Friday and then one weekend day. But it felt good having Sunday. So I'm not going to lie.
It did.
I think especially for not just players and parents, or I mean, not just for us, but also for parents maybe where, you know, they're coming back from Long Island From Rhode Island.
Long Island, baby.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Long Island.
On Long Island. No,
Jacob
so
Mikey's home.
coming back from Providence, because, you know, you have parents coming from all over the place. And, yeah, maybe they want that Sunday to just rest, regroup, and then they have to go back to work on Monday.
I
Exactly.
know one team that loved it, the Railers.
Yeah.
Hey, let's start breaking down why they loved it so much and around the E Show.
Let's take a look at what's going on around the E Show.
Around the E Show is presented by BioSteel, the sports drink of the EHL. Use the promo code EHLB1, that's EHLB1, for 25% off when you check out at biosteel.com.
And yes, Jeff, you are correct. We can finally say that the curse has been broken, right?
Because we did Tuesday through Saturday, that's why. It was Wednesday through Sunday that screwed all the mojo up, so.
Yeah, maybe that was the case. But for the first time ever, we had a team win the EHL regular season championship and the postseason championship in the same year. It just so happened to be that they did that at both the EHL and EHLP levels.
Unbelievable.
So quick
Well, for
trivia.
the P, it was the second time that happened.
Okay, there's the answer to the trivia question. I was going to say, how many times did that happen previously? Obviously, Anthony just answered it one. So that's kind of funny. Like,
And they
through
beat
all
the
the
team
years of
who did it
history-
previously.
what?
And they beat the team who did it previously,
Yes,
the
the
Boston
Rangers.
Junior Rangers.
So, like, in all the years of history that we have in this league, when you combine EHL and EHLP together, why is it that it took all this time to get just the second one of this, or these, I should say, where a team won both? Like, why is it so hard to win both?
I think, honestly, it comes down to organizational depth. Probably being first among everything, I would think, because if you have a good premier team, that's probably one of the hardest jobs in junior hockey, right? Usually you play out of the premier and you move up to your next level, whatever level of junior hockey you're in. So I feel like that's probably first and foremost is usually when you have that good of a premier team, guys get called up, move to the EHL team. And I feel like that's usually why, but not always the case.
It wasn't.
I just think it's just so hard to win in the playoffs, like at any level of hockey. So just to have it happen at both levels is obviously a pretty incredible feat.
I think part of it's also because of the playoff format, right? When it's a best of three, you only have to win 2 games. If a team has an off game, that puts them in a hole in the series, and as opposed to a best of 7. But I guess one word to describe both Railers teams: earth-shattering. Very topical today for anyone in New Jersey and New York, by the way.
That's why we put off recording till today, Anthony, because we knew that you'd be experiencing an earthquake right now. So,
Put it to the ringer.
Would you
Do you
rather
know
have
something that meteorologists don't know, Neil?
Yeah, but would you rather have an earthquake, Anthony, or what I got yesterday, which is half a foot of snow right here?
Oh, yeah, there was some nice weather last couple of days, boys.
You're talking to an avid winter enjoyer, so I think I'd go
Ugh.
for the snow every time.
It's April.
Boo.
It's April. Like
Boo.
it's time to move on.
Yeah, time to turn the page, baby. Got the Red
But
Sox coming back to town, 5-2, surprising. Who would have thought? Neil's
but
got his
Anthony, you
Portland Sea
just
Dogs
mentioned the
on right
best
now.
of three series and how they, can come and go so quickly. In the EHL, we had two best of three series leading up to the championship game last week. And they both followed very different scripts. So let's start with the one that led off each day, the Rangers versus Avalanche. How do you guys describe that series? I mean, unique.
Chaotic, unique. Yeah, tomato. Friggin', I don't even know.
That middle game, I mean, that was just a wild experience, just how long it took. I mean, the reviews, like, I don't think anybody involved had really experienced anything like that before. Just talking to the players after, they were saying, like, how it makes you wonder, like, how much in the regular season, like, in this video review, like, how much actually would change. Because, I mean, that game was determined by things like whether the puck actually crossed the line or not. I mean, that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And being that it's on a bigger stage, our referees that day, I don't know if it was, I think it was Bobby Griffin that day.
Yeah.
Big fan favorite of Bobby Griffin. Do a lot of games with him in college too. I know he wanted to make sure things were correct too. We went back and found out that some of the referees and linesmen met and were like, you know what, let's make sure we get this right. There's way too much on the line with the Avalanche's season being on the line. And if the Rangers had won moving on that day, because it is hard to look back and think that that was only one overtime, but that was a 4.5 hour game. 4.5 hours.
Is that how long it took?
Yes, because I remember when I went to the press conference after to talk to Coach Sorella and DiCaprio, I was like, well, let's talk about that 4.5 hour marathon you guys just played out there. Yeah.
I mean that overtime winner that got waved off twice. I think if they called it a goal after the third review, I don't think Schneider Arena would still be standing.
Wow. I wouldn't even call that a hot take, Anthony. I think you're probably pretty accurate with that.
Yeah. I think it's just
That's pretty lukewarm. That's a room temperature take. I think it's pretty accurate.
I mean, at least a broken window or something in the Leary room.
We wouldn't have left it the way we got there for sure.
Yeah, Eric, don't worry. We would nothing. Yeah, nothing like that.
So I don't know if you guys know this because we're obviously we'll get to games 1 and 3, but in game 2, I got stuck in a very bad position during overtime. So
where were you in New Jersey?
So
another earthquake.
Did you get locked in the bathroom, Commission? We didn't know.
Well, no, close, but amongst all those reviews, and I challenge your challenge, and you challenge my challenge, whatever the hell took place, right? Yep. I went down and I found Rochi, and I was like, hey, I mean, clearly these are two teams that have respect for each other as part of being rivals, but they also want to beat each other so bad they want to kill each other for the most part, right? So there was some animosity growing with how long the game was taken. So I was like, all right, let me go talk to Rochi. I'd love to have him kind of stand in between the two locker rooms just to make sure like we're good when all is said and done. So I was like, all right, I can't go through either bench. So I snuck through the trainer's room to get into that little culvert. What do you want to call it in between the two benches there? Like whatever it is.
Yeah, that space between the benches. That's what.
So when I open the door, I'm standing next to Chris Russo, and I get Rochi's attention, and I'm like, I tell him what I'm thinking, like, hey, I don't know when this is gonna end, like, but need your help. Get down there right away. So I turned back to go back out the trainer's door that was now locked.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh boy.
Uh-oh.
I'm like, oh boy. So we're in the middle of one of the challenge reviews at this point, right? And I'm like, if they reverse this goal, I'm standing right here, Anthony. Like I could die. Like this could be bad.
You're in the gates of hell, buddy.
I backed up against the wall as far as I could go because it gave me like you couldn't see me from the benches. So I backed all the way up and I'm standing in the corner like this, and I'm like, I need this game to either go to double overtime and then I could like sneak out of here in like 3 minutes after the teams leave, or it needs to end and I need to like scurry off one of the benches and get out of there, right? I forget what the penalty was, but ultimately Jake Hines scores a shorthanded goal to win it, right? And I got out of there so fast. I was like, this is not the place I want to be standing right now.
If you're looking at center ice, Avs were celebrating to our left. It was probably exiting to his
yeah,
right.
I just booked it out of there. But it was
what a goal that was.
The funniest was Chris's reaction
breakaway goal.
Yeah, but when I saw that the door was locked, Chris, I turned around. He was like, "Ooh, that's not good."
Sorella?
No, Chris Russo, because he was doing
Chris
the ringside
Russo.
reporting. But hey, we made it out.
Stories.
And back to that series with the way that game 2 went. Did it surprise you guys that, when you sandwich that with what took place in game 1 and game 3, 5-2 and 6-1 scores? Like, did that surprise you guys? Both in favor of the Rangers, of course.
I'm kind of, but I guess kind of not. When you look back on it, if you look at playoff history, right, for the NHL and all these leagues, usually when a game goes that long, whoever wins, usually it favors them, right? But that was not the case. Boston just took that as a quick little slap in the face, wake up call, and then they said, okay, let's just get back out there and get to business and get this thing done. And yeah, did they ever, winning 6-1. So yeah, I guess I kind of saw it coming, but I thought it was going to be the reverse. Maybe I thought that was going to kind of crush the Rangers' souls losing that way.
Yeah.
But we've seen it with this team year in and year out. Rich does a really good job of keeping that team not too high, not too low, right in the middle. And I think he did a really good job all week long with that.
I mean, I thought after that game 2 win, I thought it would give the Avalanche maybe a bit of a boost where it's like, okay, this could be our year where we finally get the best of the Rangers. But Boston just controlled the tempo right from the get-go. And it's a team that has been there before, that has won it all, where they had, I guess, I don't know if I want to say the mental fortitude, but I guess the poise in that kind of situation where they're able to handle that kind of pressure and just really take control of game 3.
Neil, didn't we both say that we thought game 3 was going to overtime, in the morning before it started? We did, yeah. So I was definitely, I didn't have a winner in my mind. I just figured it was going to be a pretty tight game and it was going to be decided by a goal. I was very wrong. And Tay Mellis had other things in mind.
It was 1-1 after 1, if you guys remember. And Robert Martiniello scored first.
Yeah,
so
the Avalanche scored first in game 3. Let's not forget that.
Right. That was a reality. And then, boom, 5 unanswered, 6-1 win Rangers. Everybody go home. It's still crazy to even relive these scores and just relive the week because it doesn't feel real, some of this.
Yeah. So that was the first series. 5-2 Rangers game 1, 4-3 Avalanche in an overtime marathon game 2, and then 6-1 Rangers game 3. So we knew then Rangers were back in the championship for the second consecutive season, right?
Yep.
You look at the other series that also had a game go to overtime, and I guess the only thing that was similar was that the team that won the overtime game didn't win the series, but what a start to the series it was for the Little Flyers. And I guess, Jake, since you were the closest one to the Railers, was there at all a sense of panic after they lose game 1 in overtime?
So I'll answer your question with a story. Walking back into the hotel that night, everybody's kind of they're all in the lobby because we got out at the same time, right? The game went to overtime. So, we do our post-game wrap-ups, whatever we do. Same amount of time it takes for them to get changed, get the heck out of there. So, a lot of guys are pretty solemn. Soulier, Boyer, all kind of stone-faced, Weinman, stone-faced. Marcus Christofides, big smile on his face, waving to me, hey, Jake. I go up to him, dap him up, say, what's up, Marcus? And he's like, just to let you know, we're going to kill these guys in games 2 and 3. Yeah. So
wow.
I don't think they were too shaken. And I was like, all right, Marcus, your game 2 pre-game interview. And yeah, that was that.
Yeah, I remember, Jake. I actually remember seeing a bunch of them come up because I think I asked Coach Bertoni this in one of his questions in one of our press conferences over the week. They all looked like they had just seen
yes. And then there was Marcus.
Just saw something happen. They all just had this look of seriousness and just determination. No, that's not happening again. We're not doing that. And man, yeah. So I remember the look on their faces, and it was like, oh, because I was talking to Coach Catron, Alo, and Coach Narrigan when those guys were walking by, and even they kind of looked at the coaches and they were like, "Have a good night." They weren't rude. They just all said like, "Hey, have a good night, nice game." Walked by, and it was just kind of like, ooh, 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 bad
with
men.
with how the week ended, do you think it actually benefited them that they lost the first game like that?
100%.
Yes.
I think it woke up
Yes.
some kind of giant inside them, and they just erupted and said, enough is enough. Let's just get this job done. We've had this goal all year long, and they knew they were the more talented team too, I believe. And Coach Catron, gave kudos to the Railers in his press conferences about how good they were as a team, and how underrated they were per usual as they come into the Frozen Finals. And they were a very good team, right? Ronnie Petrucci was unbelievable. That kid deserves all the credit in the world. He stood on his absolute head. I mean, Nick Storty to come out and score the first 2 goals. Nobody had Jack Constable scoring the first 2 goals. Nick Storty, like who? So yeah, I mean, they deserve a lot of credit too, but the Railers just were men on a mission, and it was just a little too much for Philadelphia to handle.
Yeah, so you look at game 2, they scored 233 in, then 254 in, and it kind of was just the start of what was to come that game. Little Flyers did make it 2-1 going into the intermission. Oh, sorry, I would just combine the first 2 periods together. They scored first, then Little Flyers tied it, so it was actually 1-1 at the end of the first period. And then another quick goal from the Railers at the start of the second, and then 2 more, and quickly took control of that one. Then you look at game 3 on Thursday, and that was the one when they scored twice in the first, twice in the second, once in the third. And it kind of followed a very similar script to what we saw in the championship game, right? You look at game 3 of that Little Flyer series. It was 2-0, 2-0, 1-0 in the 3 periods. You look at the championship game, and it was we'll talk about symmetry there, Jeff. 2-0, 2-0, 2-0. Has there been any talk, Jake, that MVP coulda, shoulda been Adam Casper?
No.
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 Okay.
Everyone's cool.
Everybody's an MVP on that team because it just takes everybody to do their job. I mean, like that whole third line of Prasma, Jerzak, Carney could have been just in the MVP scenario for what they did. So yeah, I don't think anybody's too torn up over that. I think they're just super happy to bring home the gold.
I was
That
torn.
includes Adam Casper himself.
We were definitely torn. Yeah, it was hard. I mean, Casper like in each like the series clinching games, Apple Core, Little Flyers, and BJR shutouts in each of those 3.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Right, to have 3 shutouts in 8 playoff games, and his like the rest of his numbers: 172 goals against, 930 save percentage.
And to do it in the clinching games, clinching games, that was like the biggest like teeterer towards Cass. But like, I don't know, Captain Jack. There's just something special when he's on the ice.
He's the heartbeat of that team.
Did Coach Bertoni tell you that Kulhanek texted him about Casper?
Oh no, what was that?
Because Casper obviously had 3 shutouts in the postseason to tie a EHL playoff record with Steph Kulhanek, who texted Coach Bertoni and said, "You let him tie my record?"
What do you want Patera in for the last game? Get Casper out of here. He can't tie a record. We're going with the late switch here.
But again, like you take away the 2 overtime games, 1 in each series. We didn't really have that many close games on the EHL side of things. I mean, look at the championship game. Was there a moment in that game for you guys all collectively when you said this is over?
Yeah.
What stands out to you? Because it was a 6-0 final.
I think the shorthanded goal was a backbreaker. I think when
the second goal.
Yeah. But Anthony might be right there. That there was a feel after that shorty realized.
I mean, it only air quotes made it 2-0, but I think when a team is just that dialed in, I mean, didn't they also score 2 quick goals in the second period in a span of like
6:01 and 7:39? Yeah, so
so like minute 38. I mean, I think that was like truly the nail in the coffin
Yeah.
But I think that the
shorty was
shorthanded
also
goal,
the end of the period too.
yeah, the shorthanded goal set the
That's
tone
that's
where I
a
think it
crusher.
showed that the Railers came to play, and even strength, power play, even shorthanded, they were just dominant.
Yeah.
I feel like mine was the third goal. That first goal in the second at 6:01, Prasma from Klaus and Dalto was like, okay, now you're done a hat trick. Casper's in the zone. He's been in the zone all playoffs long. Are you really going to be able to beat him 3 times just to tie it? Because that's what people forget. They're like, you need 3 just to tie it and then get all the effort to go ahead. And also you need to stop them from scoring anymore. So,
Yep.
yeah, so probably the third goal for me, Neil.
After the fourth goal, I went out to my car and I got both regular season trophies because I obviously brought them with me. But I was like nervous, man. I was like, when do I bring these inside? We'll get to the EHLP, but we had already given away the P trophy with the first championship game, and the EHL trophy is already in the building. So it's like, all right, I could bring all 4 trophies or the other 2 trophies in, and theoretically take this picture with both teams and all 4 trophies, which we talked about on last week's podcast, leading up to the finals. If anyone wants to go back and listen, we talked about that Carey Price photo. So I took out 2 empty boxes and I put the trophies in the boxes and I closed them up, and Rochi and I carried them back in, and I put them behind Jeff Mazzone, and I was like, if I just jinxed it, like I don't know. But I felt good at 4-0 to go do it. I was like, all right, kind of the same reason for what you said, Jeff. Like they were gonna have to score 4 straight at that point just to tie things up, and we were nearing the end of the second period, and it felt like, Casper had this like force field behind him with some of the saves that he was making. So, but what do you think the main reason was behind such a convincing championship game? Conditioning?
I mean, the Railers do such a good job at recruiting good skaters. And I think that's the biggest thing because, I mean, you look at guys like Jerzak and Marcus Chrysofides and Jack Wyman, Connor McNamara, even down to their quote unquote fourth line, like played Kerjalak and Dalto, guys that are just going to execute their roles and skate hard, get to the points, eat shots, like guys that just keep their feet moving. So I think like that relentlessness at both levels is what fueled the Railers to pretty convincing performances in their respective games. More on the P later, but like as far as the EHL goes, like I don't think anybody recruits better like pure footwork skaters than Sean Bertoni.
I'd say it has more to do maybe with preparation, and not just preparation, but also mindset. I mean, like I know we're going to talk about the P later, but I think seeing the P team win definitely helped the Railers.
That's
but
fair.
I think there was this for both teams. I just think there was this mindset where it was just like all out sprint to the finish, literally empty the tank, just leave it all out there. And I think the Railers were the better prepared team for both games, where it's not something you can measure, but you could just sense that they were in the zone. They were locked in. They were laser focused. I know most teams usually are in the playoffs, but the Railers more so in that championship game.
Yeah, and I think real quick, Neil, just to answer your question, I feel like it was just kind of, I mean, I'm trying to think back to what Coach DiCaprio, Coach Bertoni said with all their different end of the year thoughts, and I feel like there was just this kind of, like you guys have been saying, this will to just to get the job done. To this team had been there so many times. I mean, and look at last year. One of the things that I remember Coach Bertoni saying to me was watching the Rangers knock them out last year really kept a bad taste in their mouth to get to the championship, and they wanted to do that again. And they knew the Rangers eventually won the championship last year, so that was a big deal to them. But I think they just had it on their minds all year long to win at both levels, rewrite the history books, do it for Coach A. That was another question I had to ask Sean. That was got real tough for all of us in the room, and I know that was a huge thing. I think last year it kind of maybe was a little bit too much of a weight on their shoulders. Now that it's been a little longer, I feel like now is more of the right time for it to happen, and I feel like everything did align. I mean, that is a great Rangers team right there. They're battle tested, and I just think that this Railers team kind of, I said this to Rich DiCaprio, it kind of reminded me of his COVID team, the 2020 team, where they were just unstoppable. All four lines, all three D pairings, just felt like they just couldn't get knocked off the track, for lack of a better term. They were just bam, missiles.
And one point that you guys just brought up that I want to mention, Anthony, you said seeing the P team win first, but then flip it, did it almost put pressure on them? Like, they won, now we have to win also. We can't let this be a split today. I view it like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could go that way, Neil. You could say there's pressure on, or you could say the pressure's off. Like, hey, at least one team won, so at least our organization's going out of here with some kind of trophy. But
yeah,
well, I mean, probably... but like you saw the players on the EHL team the way they were cheering on the P team and vice versa, where it was just cool. All they're all ecstatic. They were electric when they were cheering on the other team. So I'm not sure if it was pressure, so to say. Me, if anything, I think it was more like, wow, like look at what they did. Now it's our turn. Yeah. Where again, it goes back to that mindset. They were on a mission, and I think with like the positive energy that they just kind of exuberated the entire week. Like, no, I don't know if I'd say it was too much pressure. Just more like, hey, they got it. Now it's our turn. Let's do this.
Yeah, that's fair. To the EHLP, speaking of things that maybe surprised us, I mean, it's the last year of the round robin. I will say that, right? I'm going to push to have 2 best-of-3 series, just like we have in the EHL, especially because we can go to 4 divisions next year with the expansion.
I love how there's no round robin math where it's like, I think they clinched. Yeah. I think there's still like 4 different scenarios where they actually don't make the championship game. I just love how the best-of-3 is just so much more straightforward. Win these 2 games, you're in the championship.
Exactly.
Sunday.
It doesn't matter how many goals you score, or you don't have to get to a certain
differential. Quotient is the one where I'm just so glad we never had to go down to. Yeah. Because I still don't know what the hell is goal differential quotient.
That's when Neil gets his Scantron, his pencils, and we've done it many times in the past. We're like, all right, write this team out, write this goals for it, this is it. All right, then we write this one, goal team, goal. Blah, 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 blah. Done it many times with you in the years past.
Yes, as a result of how the round robin played out, it made sense that when we got to the third day, when the Rangers and Railers would have potentially played for the 10th time, just to figure out who would have been the home team for the championship game, putting that off to the championship game, right? But 9-2, like again,
another like whoa.
And for a while, it didn't feel like that, right? I mean, I think it was a 3-2 game at one point. I want to say, like, it felt like we were in for a barn burner with both sides contributing equally throughout.
I thought it was going to be like a 7-6 game at one point.
Yeah,
a missed extra point is the difference, Anthony.
Yeah.
But 22 goals scored in 3 games for the Railers.
Damn.
I mean, they have to feel like they, not every time they shot, but close to every time they shot, it had a chance to go in.
Right. And Shanappy was a kid that we were talking about all weekend long about how good he was. And then the Railers came to town and humbled him really quick. But yeah, welcome to the Frozen Finals. That's what happens, right? Is
two playoff hat tricks for that Railers P team.
Zach Warner-Cini, that kid, what an unbelievable player he is.
Well, Warner-Cini didn't get a hat trick. It was Jamin Rolfe and then Tom Check in the championship game. But yeah, Warner-Cini was unbelievable too.
12 points over 3 games. Like, who puts up 5, then 4, then 3 in 3 straight days too?
Yeah,
that's just unbelievable. Funnest name I've probably ever had the pleasure of saying.
Oh, you crushed that.
Ooh, so many vowels in there for me to ride. It was the 3 names. It was just like, love it.
I think that Worcester team was just too much to handle. I mean, Jamin Rolfe was kind of like a Zach Gruber last year who played in the EHL for the bulk of the year. Sent down to the P for the last, handful of games of the regular season, put up wicked numbers, and then did the same thing in the playoffs, just like Gruber did. And you could argue that without Jamin Rolfe, things would have been a lot tighter. You could argue the same thing without Zach Gruber last year for the 87s. And then on D, Worcester didn't love their right side on D, but they have the depth at the EHL level that they're able to sacrifice without hurting anything at the EHL level. So Aiden Owen and Tomas Maloui, 2, EHL caliber, easily defensemen in our league, are now in the P. Yeah. So I just think that they just had so much EHL level talent. Nolan Tomchek had, multiple goals in the EHL. Brooks Wright had multiple goals in the EHL. Warner Cini put up 2 assists in his debut. So just at the EHL level this year. So just a lot of guys that could definitely do it at the next level, and it was just too much for the other teams.
And the thing about Warner Cini too, he's an 06. So if he wanted
he's superhuman.
If he wanted to stay with the Railers, he could play 3 full seasons in the EHL and put up crazy numbers, like potential like all-time leading Railers scorer, I feel like. But
yeah.
If he chose to, Anthony, stay in the P the entire time, he probably would challenge Ivan Borisov's records, though, just so you know.
Yeah.
Breaking news, he's probably not going to stay in the Premier.
Might. I don't know if I'd say might.
Ivan is my GOAT, all right? He is my GOAT.
But it's funny, I've actually had the chance to update the EHLP record book page each of the last 2 seasons, right? So you go back to the 22 Frozen Finals when Trent King had 15 points and Max Morris had 14 points. We were like, wow, that was a really good finals. Like, we saw guys put up 15 points throughout the postseason. That's pretty damn good. Then you fast forward to this past year, and Gruber had 17. And we're like, man, that's kind of a number that I don't know if anyone can really get that high. But then you look at Zach Warner-Cini with 18, Jamin Rolfe with 16, Max Retzel. I mean, great year, a great postseason for the Rangers. No, they didn't win, but see, he still had 15, right? Now, when I was on the ice, when I was on the ice doing the all-tournament team, Jake, we announced Rolfe before we announced ZWS. I'm just going to say that. That's faster. And he said something to Zach. Have you found out what has been said? Because I think he knew, like, in that moment that Zach was going to get the MVP and he wasn't. And it looked like he gave him, like, all right, you got me by 1. I may have.
Oh, man. I mean, that would be very Rolfe.
Okay.
That would be very Rolfe.
Is that what something he would say?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Rolfe's got a mouth on him.
You SOB. I'll get you next time.
Well, I think Rolfe had 5 of the first 6 goals for the Railers in the round robin, so it felt like it was his for the taking early on. But then Warner-Cini just took it over as the weekend progressed.
Yeah, I mean, Rolfe both of them are guys that were on the team last year, and I just feel like with Rolfe, like, he was there. Zach joined the team in February last year, but Rolfe just being there from the start and going through it, and that group last year was so incredible. I think he just kind of took it all pretty personally the second he stepped foot in Providence and wanted to do it for them.
For sure.
Him and Retzel are tied for most goals in a postseason ever with 10 in one postseason
Retzel
together.
is unbelievable.
Oof.
He's really next level.
Another guy that got some time in the EHL, probably getting called up next year. Zach Warner-Cini probably getting called up. Maybe in the same building. I don't know, Neil. Is that broken yet?
It's known. It's known, right? Is it known? Okay. I will say this, though. I have to give myself a pat on the back. I did better with the pictures of the all-tournament team players that were from the team that lost this year.
Agreed.
Yeah.
There were some tough-looking ones last year.
I'm glad that you jumped right over that, Jake, because afterwards I looked to make sure, and I was like, all right, you did better with those this year.
Yeah, I mean, a bloody Mike O'Malley is not the highlight.
Well, it was tough, because if you look at the Railers ones for the E team, Wyman and Casper came up and put their arm around me. I was like, all right, we're really gonna embrace here for a second, right?
Yeah. So didn't a player ask if they could do that to you last year? Ask, can I put my arm around you? I think you said.
I maybe, right? But it's hard not to smile for those because they're so happy in that moment, right? But I had to take a picture with both Tay Mellis and with Retzel. And I remember I said to Tay, I was like, hey, man, I know this isn't how you want it to go, but you're a player that we're going to talk about for a very long time.
Yeah.
The best.
And we did all season long, right? So I said to him, I can't wait to watch you play college hockey. He was like, thank you. I'm looking forward to it, right? Because ultimately that's what it comes down to. Anything that was accomplished this past week is just bonus for the teams that won. When all these kids are going off to college, that's really the main reason why they're here.
Also, can I also just give a shout out to another player? Jasock Lee came up to the press box after all was said and done. And Jeff, I think you were there. He was thanking you, me, Chris Russo. He was thanking everyone for the coverage that we put in. Just unbelievably nice kid. I was joking with him. I said, as the EHL beat writer, you were fantastic this postseason. I said, as the 87s broadcaster, how dare you break my heart with that with that nasty assist, that pass in double overtime to set up Jakob Uhler. He had a good chuckle about that one, but great player, better kid.
Yeah, he was on the Mike Basile and Tyler Rigo all broadcast team. Both big fans of Jay Sockley.
Yeah, Mike has made that very clear since the content.
Yes.
Love
it.
But for the 6th edition of the finals, I will say, like, similar to the EHL, there just weren't as many close games in the EHLP. We had an overtime game in there, and that Wolves 87s game that was a de facto third place game. It was a de facto third place game, right?
Yeah.
But I guess the part that made things easier when you compare it to previous years, because the games weren't as close, is we weren't really sweating the all tournament team selection stuff, Jeff. We kind of
we had that pretty much
kind of were just in cruise control. Right?
Like, what do you think of this? Let me just fix a couple stats. All right, cool.
The only tough decision was really MVP that we talked about with Jake. We went with Wyman, and Wyman deserved every bit of it, but we could have made the case for Casper, especially if game 1 against the Little Flyers had gone potentially differently. I think it probably could have been Casper's, considering
we had Casper written as the original, and then you went back, we talked, and you were like, yeah, and I was like, yeah.
Well, I didn't want to jinx the shutout. I was so paranoid about the shutout, right?
Yep,
I'm sure for the Railers, like, if they had won that game 6-1, they would have, and not a shutout, I'm sure that would have
bothered
them a little bit.
100%.
The fact that they also won by large margins too. I mean,
yes.
Casper was brilliant, but I think that when you beat a team by large margins, I think that something has to be said for the skaters. And I spoke with Casper on the ice after the championship game. He said, if it weren't for the skaters in front of me, I wouldn't have had that shutout.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, their penalty kill was suffocating. I think it was one of the first power plays. They didn't even barely allowed any entries past the blue line. They were just there. Fuck, send it the other way. There.
Credit to Coach Bertoni for knowing to put in Kerjalak and Dalto for that role specifically. It started in the Apple Core series. I asked him, wasn't entirely expecting to see those two after the Chiefs series, and then they come in and they earn their spots and they hold it until the championship game.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Jake, since you're here with us too, and you're the Railers guy, right? So there's so many players that are moving on to college, right? From the EHL team. Who is the leader coming back of the two teams combined that is like, when you walk into the WIC first day next year, like, everyone on both teams is looking at him to kind of lead the way back in this, we'll call it a double title defense?
Ooh.
Oh wow. I don't know. I mean, I'll say this real quick. Like, I almost wish Jake Kloss wasn't going to Wilkes because he's an 04.
Okay.
And I think he would be the first guy that would come to mind for me.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. I mean, it's going to depend on who comes back. I know, a guy like Soulier could be viewed as a leader if he decides to come back. At the EHLP level, I don't know if there are going to be too many returners, but then Zach Warnercini, if he gets called up, I mean, he's a guy who knows the ropes, and he's played EHL games before. So yeah, I mean, it could be either one of those guys, but in my heart, wish it was Jake Kloss.
I just bring it up because, as you guys have mentioned on this podcast already, the EHL core, the Corbin Mealy, Jack Wymans, they were motivated to finish the job this year, right? And then the same for the EHLP guys that were in double overtime last year. So it's different to be returning next season as the double champs, as opposed to how close and how much heartbreak they had leading up to it. But it was also awesome to see guys like Matt Pimentel there in the crowd to congratulate the team. And then I know, Jake, you shared a bunch of alumni who put it on their Instagram story.
That
was cool. That's where it
goes to show, it doesn't leave you, it's
100%.
a couple of years of a team and playing hockey. I mean, for any team, right? This is they form bonds. They're together every day. The living situations of junior hockey foster that. The fact that it's a full-time job, spending every day at the rink. You're there from just speaking from Worcester, you're there from 9 to like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock together. Then you're eating together.
Yeah.
Then you're working out together. Like it happens at any team, and it just goes to show it really doesn't leave you, and that you know, group success that are years apart from when you played is still, you know, a success for you and for the team that's part of you.
That might be one of the coolest things was seeing all those old guys, because then it made us feel old too now. It's like, oh, Tyler Drummond, what up? It's like, about time.
About time. I did like that one, right?
Right, that was great. Chirping him a little bit.
Have you heard any updates on the mansion, Jake? Did it survive the night?
Survived, not without a couple of scratches and bruises, but it survived.
A couple of calls to the local PD.
Oh, man.
A little loud.
That's too funny.
Down.
We just won 2 championships off.
Heard there was a foot in cupboard situation. I heard. So
that's never really crossed my mind, but if it crosses someone else's,
well, kitchen reno after the championship.
But hey, speaking of surviving, right? The fantasy challenge kind of felt like a little bit of a survivor with people getting knocked out throughout the postseason, and a worthy champion, right? So let's get to that now with the eShow Fantasy Challenge.
Now it's time for the eShow Fantasy Challenge. Follow along on the EHL app, available now for free on both Apple iOS and Android.
So, Jeff, I'm not going to even waste any time talking about the Yahoo League, because that's been weeks in the past for us, so we're fine there.
Who won our league, though? Because I sent Justin my money, and I was like, here's my donation. Thank you so much. It was a great year.
It's in the finals right now. So Phil, that was in first place all year long, is going to win, right? So makes sense. Best team all season long ultimately wins. But for those that are in the Yahoo League, Jeff, and everybody else that wants to just quickly turn the page over, it's now baseball season. We're nearing the hockey playoffs. There's plenty that they can do on DK.
There sure is, Neil. So bet that action on the ice. They want us to still stay on that ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. So download the app now and use code THPN. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on the beautiful game of hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets do expire 168 hours after issuance. And do you have a gambling problem? If so, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER. You can visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, you can call 8778-HOPENY, or you can text HOPENY, which is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is also available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void that if you live in Ontario. Bonus bets do expire again 168 hours after issuance. So see dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2023, all rights reserved.
After a number of hours, Jeff, they expire. So
yeah, use them.
As we touched on before the Frozen Finals last podcast, we narrowed the field down from the 5 champions to 2 in Joe Chase and Kevin Unger, an Apple Corps alum and an Apple Corps father. And it was actually Kevin Unger who got the win during the Frozen Finals. Remember, each guy, we did this like draft, if you will, and you picked from the 8 teams that were in the finals who you thought was going to make it to the championship game. And once you picked the team, the other person couldn't. So Joe Chase led off with Railers EHL. He did text me after game 1 of that Little Fire series and said, "What did I do?" Ultimately got that point. Each guy got a point at the EHL level because Joe had Railers EHL and Kevin had Rangers EHL. But in terms of the EHLP, Joe had 87s and Wolves, and Kevin had both the Railers and the Rangers. So he wins 3-1. The sweatshirt is in the mail for Kevin, and it's just all great timing because he wins that on Saturday, and then literally just a handful of days later, Peter Unger, his son, commits to college, right? So his son will be heading to Keene State in the fall, and all in the same 24-hour span. The EHL has locked into play Keene State with the Northeast All-Star team.
Thank you to Jake
See you next year, Pete.
for helping set that up. Thanks, Jake.
Ooh.
So it's just
assistant commish, you know.
I love it. I love it. So it's just kind of like not that Joe would have been a worthy champion too if he had won, right? But
he would have been Long Island born, baby.
Yes.
Howard Beach.
Just a pretty cool, transition from the end of the finals to locking in Peter Unger, which is a huge get for Keene State, right? And big for us to go play them too next year. They've committed 10 of our players so far. And it's just cool. The college series already has 6 teams locked in, 2 for the Northeast, 2 for the South Central, 2 for the Maine, New York All-Star team. Sweet. I already have 2 schools locked in for fall of 2025 too. Who were like, can you put us
getting way ahead?
Yeah, so I already have one of the Northeast teams who they're gonna play. It's just pretty damn cool. And I will say this too. I talked to Bertoni yesterday or 2 days ago, and I was like, so
he's doing well.
Well, I said, so you won, so you get to be the head coach of the New York. Yes, I'm in. I'm like, okay. I hadn't really asked the question yet. So, and then I went to Rich and I said, listen, as the runner-up, I can give you the choice. You can be Bertoni's assistant, or you can be, the head coach of the regional team, one of the regional teams, right? And he's like, I had posted that picture. You guys, I'm sure, saw my personal Instagram post where I'm actually sandwiched between Sean and Rich with the all-star team around us. And he's like, we're gonna remake that picture all over again. And I was like, okay, that works.
He's gonna assist Bertones?
Yes. He's like, I'll fill the water bottles this year. So
sweet.
Little did we know that back in October, when I sit down for that picture, those were the 2 teams that would have ended up in the championship game against each other.
We're gonna have to keep track of that picture though, Neil, and make sure see what comes of it for the future.
It was a great picture too, because Carson Fry was right behind me, and he said, "You're way down there." And I was like, "Dude, I'm sitting down, and you're 6'6". Like, come on, man."
What a jerk.
Andrew Haw too, right? Playing his future team. Now we get to see Andrew Haw again in the new year.
Yeah. So that's Brockport and Elmira. I talked to Corbin afterwards, Jake, because he came up and thanked us for everything that took place throughout the week. And I was like, yeah, and we'll see you right away in October. And he's like, damn.
Yeah, that's what I said to Haji too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's to be on the other side of it now, right? To be on the other side of it. So that's one thing to watch out for, but there's something else leading up through the rest of the summer. So let's jump to what to watch for now.
And now here's what to watch for in the EHL and the EHLP.
What to watch for is presented by Flow Hockey, the official streaming platform for your EHL and EHLP action throughout the 2023-2024 season.
So, similar and different to previous years, we always change it up, right? I know, Jake, last year we did all those interviews with the coaches, which was fantastic, and gave you a chance to get to know them even better. We're only going to do 4 episodes this summer, guys, but they're going to be bigger episodes, and they're going to be 1 per month. I don't know the order yet. We're going to figure it out, and there's no set dates yet. We're going to figure that out too. But May, June, July, August, South, Central, East, North. We'll focus on 1 division per month, especially because that'll be the names of the divisions in the EHLP as well next year. That we'll have 4 divisions. So
see you later, Boston, Mid-Atlantic, and over the
I had to make them different because we only had 3 before, Jeff. So now we have 4 and 4, symmetrical, same names. It all makes sense, and I get to tell all the coaches,
like all things should be.
Yes, I get to tell all the coaches what I'm going to be proposing at our coaches summit, which is 6 days away. I mean, beautiful. We have our combine in Mass that starts literally Thursday. So
next Thursday, that's right.
Yeah, the 11th. Coaches Summit is at noon. If you wanted to stop by, Jeff, could get fun.
I do usually like to make an appearance because it's always like a week or 2 after the season. You're like, hey, missed you guys. It's been like 2 weeks since I've seen you. But
yeah, see, I don't know if I like the fact that it's so quick after
that soon. Yeah,
because it's like, all right, you're still kind of in that mode, so it's okay.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, dude, I want a break.
Right. It is weird. It's a weird vibe in there for sure.
Yeah. But that's
Instagram notifications on for Wednesday, just so everybody, all the listeners at home. Big post coming Wednesday, Neil.
There's a big post coming Wednesday. There's a big
From
post
the league, from Jake,
from the league,
Neil,
from the league,
Huh?
from the league.
Oh,
Yeah. For those players that are wondering too, we're going to be announcing commitments every weekday until the list is empty. Okay. Like there's plenty lined up, just so everyone knows, right?
the league office knows they were a little backed up. There was a little thing called the playoffs. It was a little buggy.
Literally gonna get 3 more out next week, and then the combine, and then 5 the week after, 5 the week after, until we get down to 0. But there's plenty of commitments that are still to come too. I had a couple coaches text me yesterday about 5 guys that they're just waiting on quotes on to send their form in. So
Perfect. Do we hit the century mark again?
we're about to.
We're close, right?
We're about to.
I knew we were close.
Once the forms that get sent in for what was texted me yesterday will be at 100, right? So
boom. Hashtag 3-letter league, baby.
I love
Your
it.
shirts.
Too.
Players
Your shirts. Where players come first. 3-letter
Exactly.
league.
Always, actually, and forever. But thank you guys for helping put together a tremendous 6th edition of the Frozen Finals, right?
Woo.
And the countdown is already on for 7. Plenty of things in between now and 7, but
Yeah, we get a few
the countdown
things.
is on. So we'll talk to you guys in May for the first featured division of the offseason.
Bye, boys.
Thanks for listening to The E Show, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Learn more about us at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when our next podcast episode is released.